Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and this video where I'm going to be talking about whether you should free hit or wildcard in Game Week 8 or not. I'm going to go through the pros and cons for free hitting in Game Week 8 and show you a free hit draft. I'm also going to go through the teams that you should look to target on a wildcard in Game Week 8 and teams to try to avoid if you're wildcarding in this game week. And then I'm going to show you a wildcard draft at the end of the video as well. But first and foremost, let's go through the free hit pros and cons for this game week. When it comes to the pros, I think the fixtures aren't the best. They aren't ideal, but there are some nice upside fixtures there. Because sometimes, like, not the ideal fixtures on a free hit could be a blessing in disguise. Because some of these players you might not want to go with for a permanent transfer, but for like a short-term punt on a free hitting game gate, it could be worth your while. And I think the best fixtures to target are Liverpool playing against Man United at home at Anfield. I think this could be a really good game week for the likes of Salah and Isak, who I think have good opportunity to be really good FPL assets, but they haven't really shown much so far this season to warrant like a full-blown free transfer used. But I think for a free hitting gate, they could be really good options, especially as a potential captaincy choice. Because yes, Manchester City have a decent enough fixture at home to Everton, but I don't think it's like super good either, especially if Brantwaite is back for Everton, which could be happening for Game Week 8. I'm not quite sure. But if that's the case, that'll be a tougher test for Man City than they usually have against Everton. But either way, Everton are a good team, so I don't think it's the ideal hold-on game week, but I think Man United at home could be the ideal game week for the likes of Salah and Isak. So if you really want to go for a captaincy punt there with either one of those guys going against the hold-on template captaincy choice, I think Salah and Isak could be worth your while. And I think Liverpool in general just have some decent players to go for, but I don't think Man United at home is like best fixture necessarily, so that's like one of the cons, I guess, that like one of the best fixtures to target is not really like the ideal fixture. Usually you'd want to have like Burnley at home or something like that to choose from, or Nottingham Forest at home. You have Nottingham Forest away for Chelsea, so you have a Big Six team against Nottingham Forest, which is a good sign, but it is also away from home, so I'm not sure if that's like the best ideal fixture for a Chelsea team that have been a bit up and down. They showed some promise beating Liverpool last game week, and they do have some nice options, but they are playing away against Nottingham Forest, which is a good game, but it should be at home ideally in those fixtures. But Chelsea are a team to potentially target in Game Week 8 free hit as well. Spurs at home to Aston Villa, I still think is a good fixture, and this is also the last like really good fixture or pretty good fixture Spurs have in a while. I think they get some pretty tough fixtures from Game Week 9 onwards. So if you don't have any Spurs assets and you don't want to invest in them long term, a free hit could be a good idea just because you can have them for one game week and then just get rid of them again with the return of your usual squad after Game Week 8. West Ham at home to Brentford as well. I think West Ham are a team that you could potentially look to invest in for like future game weeks as well, because they do have some nice fixtures coming up, including Burnley at home in Game Week 11 as well, or something like that. So I think they do have some nice players to go for, but I'm also not quite sure if it's worth a free transfer either if you don't have any of those players. But for a free hitting game gate, I think Brentford at home is one of the best fixtures you can go for. Brentford have been really bad this season away from home. They lost to Nottingham Forest. They lost to Sunderland and Fulham as well. So they haven't really been that good away from home, Brentford, and I think that's a good team to target as well. And West Ham have some really nice options potentially, which we'll get to with the free hit draft. The other thing is, if you are filled up with a lot of players from the likes of Man United, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, you might want to go for a free hit as well because you can avoid these teams. But I think that is probably a better idea to do a wildcard if you have a lot of these players anyway, because you don't really want any of them that much long term. Like Man United are always in shambles with Amorim. They haven't been good with him whatsoever so far. Nottingham Forest also really struggling under Ange Postecoglou. Everton are better long term. I don't think it's like something you need to do. Like mostly, like if you're loaded up with a couple of Everton players, you might want to keep them from Game Week 9 onwards. Like Grealish is not playing. Tarkowski has better game weeks than this coming up, of course. Njai is still a good pick. Dewsbury Hall is still a good pick. So if you have several of those players, if you're tripled up on Everton, for example, I think that's like more of a reason to free hit in Game Week 8 than potentially having a lot of Man United and Nottingham Forest players that you just want to sell permanently anyway. Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, I think, have really good players as well, so those are also players you want to keep long term. If you have a lot of Everton, Palace and Bournemouth players in particular, I think that's probably the best idea to free hit, especially if you don't have any Liverpool players and no Chelsea players or Spurs players as well. That is probably the best idea to free hit if you're looking to use that chip or not in Game Week 8. So Palace against Bournemouth, I think it's a game that could go anywhere. Like, it could be a good win for Palace, it could be a good win for Bournemouth, but it's really tough to judge. It's really hard to know which players are going to be the standout options from this game. Is it going to be Sarr? Is it going to be Semenyo? Is it going to be Richards? Is it going to be Senesi? It's really hard to know in this fixture, so I would probably like to avoid it if I'm on a free hit in Game Week 8 myself. But it isn't the worst fixture if you have a lot of players from these teams. I wouldn't mind starting them, especially Palace players at home. I wouldn't mind starting them if you have them and you don't want to free hit. So, yeah. Like I mentioned already, Salah or Isak has the captaincy potential. I think that's like one of the better things about free hitting in Game Week 8. You could potentially have a really good captain, but at the same time, City's fixture isn't the worst, so it's probably not the ideal ideal game week to free hit in. Game Week 12 could be a better option, for example, when Liverpool play at home to Nottingham Forest, which is a really good fixture if Postecoglou is still in charge at least. And then at the same game week, City play away to Newcastle, so that's probably a better game week to free hit in if you're looking to get like a captaincy punt instead. But you do get to test some Liverpool and Chelsea options out in Game Week 8 if you want to with the free hitting Game Week 8, because they do have really good fixtures, Liverpool and Chelsea, so you would ideally want to invest in them long term. But I don't think any other assets apart from maybe Enzo Fernandez from Chelsea and Joao Pedro from Chelsea I think is pretty good as well, as we'll get to with the Wildcard Draft. Apart from those two guys, I'm not sure if there's that many other Chelsea assets that I would like long-term invest in, because it's like a bit of an uncertain future with those guys. So yeah, there are some Liverpool and Chelsea options available that you can test out for Game Week 8, but I'm not sure if I would want them long-term. So yeah, that's probably the con as well. Like, there aren't that many like standout Liverpool or Chelsea options to go for in those games that I would like to target in Game Week 8 free hit. So it could be something that sort of turns you off of using the free hit in Game Week 8 as well. The other thing with Game Week 8 and Game Week 9 is the fact that they are really similar. So free hitting doesn't really make sense, because you'll get back to a team like a team that has bad fixtures in Game Week 8 will probably have bad fixtures in Game Week 9 as well, and the opposite. Like teams that have good fixtures in Game Week 8 will have good fixtures in Game Week 9 also. So it doesn't really make too much sense to free hit when the next game week is going to be pretty similar to the game week that you actually free hit it in. So yeah, you might want to do a wildcard instead if your team is like really bad, or if it's just like a little bit bad, you might want to just do regular transfers instead to rectify that, basically. The other thing is, like, can you trust West Ham against Brentford at home? It is one of the better fixtures, but it is still also West Ham, who have been really bad this season. Nuno Espirito Santo is certainly going to help things with West Ham, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's like the best fixture to target, even though I'm going to target it if I am on a free hitting Game Week 8. I'm not sure if I would be too comfortable using a free hit to load up on West Ham assets, basically. And like I said, there are better free hits game weeks ahead, especially if you're wildcarding now and you have a pretty good team with a lot of City and Liverpool assets that you want permanently from Game Week 13 onwards, especially. It might be better to free hitting Game Week 11 when Man City and Liverpool play each other, and you can avoid those players for that game week and still have your same squad before and after that, when City and Liverpool assets will be better. So yeah, those are some of the pros and cons of the free hit. Let's go to the free hit drafts and show you what I would go for if you are activating the chip and you're going for a free hitting Game Week 8. So this is the squad currently that I've set up. I'm also going to update this before the deadline, basically on the Friday video next week. For my team selection video, I'm going to show you the updated free hit draft with the players that I do like the best after the international break is over. But for now, before we know anything about the international break, or most things from the international break, this is probably the team that I would go for if I was on a free hit in Game Week 8. So in goal, I'd have Roofs from Sunderland playing against Wolves at home. I think that's a good fixture to target. Sunderland have been pretty solid at home, especially against the weaker sides so far this season. And I think Roofs have been, he has just been one of the better goalkeepers in the league so far, and he could keep a clean sheet and still get some saves in that game. Defensively, Chalobah is one of the other Chelsea assets that I do quite like. He's back from suspension now. Not that many people will have him at all. I think Nottingham Forest have been a team that have struggled to score this season, so Chalobah should be a decent option. He is also someone that could score from set pieces, and it's just a good option if he doesn't get red carded like he did in Game Week 6, basically. Van de Ven in defense, Spurs against Aston Villa at home. I think that's still a good fixture. Aston Villa haven't really shown that much offensively still, and Spurs have been pretty good defensively, so Van de Ven is still a good pick, also for a pretty cheap price, because you want to have some money in the bank left for some really good options in this team offensively. Juf as well from West Ham, Brentford at home. Like I said, good fixture. He's been so good so far this season as well. A lot of assists. At home to Brentford is potentially a good game week for West Ham to get a clean sheet, potentially, but they are also pretty weak defensively, so we'll see. But if Jof gets a clean sheet, he's going to be pretty good for bonus and potentially even more points if he gets an assist or potentially even a goal. But yeah, I think that's a good fixture to target in general. I've triple up on West Ham. You can see there Somerville and Bowen as well. I think Somerville is actually a really interesting option at 5.5. Someone who is looking a lot better under Nuno Espirito Santo, who has a lot of talent. He just hasn't really been able to show it at West Ham because he's been injured for so many game weeks. But I do quite like Somerville. Enzo's also going to be the standout Chelsea option for me because Palmer is out for a couple of weeks still. He might be out until like game week 10, game week 11 in November. So Enzo seems like a pretty good option, both long-term and also short-term, because Nottingham Forest away is a pretty good fixture. He's going to play pretty high up in the pitch. He's going to be on set pieces. He's going to be on penalties, most likely. So yeah, I think Enzo Fernandez is a really good pick, both permanently and on a free hit in Game Week 8. Semenyo, I've just selected once again because I told you last game week as well. I'm probably just going to go with Semenyo every time I have a free hit draft now because he's just so good. That worked out in Game Week 7 when he got 18 points against Fulham, which is not like the ideal fixture, but he still showed that he is worth it all the time, Semenyo, because he's just an amazing player in the form of his life. Probably just like permanently now a really good player to have in FPL in general. So yeah, I'm just going to select him in a free hit draft, and I don't really have that many other good midfield alternatives, in my opinion. Salah as well, going with him as the captaincy shout. He's always really good against Man United at home. Scored twice now in the World Cup qualifiers. It is against pretty bad opposition. Djibouti, I think he scored against. But that is still a positive indication that he is still hungry for goals. And I think he could be a really nice captaincy option this week. If you still have them now, I would probably risk it against Haaland. I think it's an interesting shout at least. But I would still have Haaland in the squad. Basically I would still have Haaland in the squad, basically to just safeguard in case Haaland just does really well. At least he'll get half of his points. But Salah is going to be someone that not that many people will have. So I think it's going to be a really good option to have as a captain as well in Game Week 8. Haaland as vice captain, still in like super good form, playing it at home at the Etihad. That's going to be a really good chance for Haaland to get even more points. Up front, I also have Joao Pedro against Nottingham Forest away. Again, one of the better fixtures to go for. Joao Pedro still is nailed. He still doesn't really have anyone to challenge him for minutes with Liam Delap out injured. He's going to be able to play 90 minutes pretty much every game. So he's still going to be a decent option, even though he hasn't been in the best form lately. Jared Bowen has been in pretty good form lately, and he has a really good fixture against Brentford at home, so I think he's a pretty simple choice as well up front. He is probably the West Ham player that I trust him, or he is the West Ham player that I trust the most as a West Ham fan and as an FPL manager. He's just been so consistent for West Ham for like 5 years now. He's just undeniable, so Brentford at home seems like a pretty good chance for him to score some points as well, so he's also up front there in the starting trio up front as the final forward of the team. On the bench, I have Dubravka against Leeds at home. Pretty simple backup choice for a cheap price. Udogie is also really cheap against Aston Villa at home. I just don't really trust him enough to start. I think Van de Ven is a safer starter, so that's why I have Van de Ven over Udogie. But if you want to risk it a bit with Udogie, I think he's a better option if he does start the game for Spurs. So it could be a decent option for a really cheap price. Alderete as well from Sunderland. He's shown his worth previously in the season. Got a 17-pointer against Nottingham Forest away from home. So at home to Wolves, I think that's a pretty good fixture. You could potentially start him as well. If you don't like Somerville, for example, you don't want to triple up on West Ham, you could go with Alderete instead, and I might end up doing that as well for my final free hit draft in the final team section video before Game Week 8 starts. Also, just final bench player is King from Fulham, just because he's the cheapest possible player, and I needed some cheap assets to basically make the squad work. So yeah, King is just there, even though he has a pretty bad fixture against Arsenal at home, pretty much. Speaking of Arsenal, they are playing against Fulham, so I think Gabriel is a really good shout still. Any Arsenal defender is a really good player to have, so if you have double up on Arsenal defense, I'm not sure if I would free hit to remove two of them, but I do think there are other better alternatives, but you could definitely have Gabriel over Chaluba if you have the money available in the bank, and that could be available for you if you go for Isak rather than Salah, for example. You could have more money available to use, and if that was the case, I would certainly have Arsenal defensive players because they are probably still the best players to have currently, but it's just a bit too expensive, so I preferred having some good attacking assets, or basically Salah and Haaland in the same team, rather than going with Arsenal defenders or Arsenal players in general in this squad. So yeah, Gabriel or Timber are going to be really good options. Calafiori is going to be a pretty good option as well. So yeah, those are good defenders to go for if you don't like this current starting squad that I have in the Game Week 8 Free Hit Draft. In midfield, Kudus, of course, he is my nemesis, I guess, because he is a former West Ham player. He left West Ham on bad terms, and he was really bad at West Ham last season, so I've been pretty harsh on Kudus. He has sorta, I guess, proven me wrong with getting a lot of FPL points so far this season from very low underlying numbers, basically. He doesn't have the best underlying numbers. He has one big chance created, which was a scuffed shot to Richarlison against Brighton a couple game weeks back. But he has just been getting the points at least. So yeah, for anyone that is saying that don't think about the analytics, go for actual points, then maybe Kudus is the choice. He's going to be playing 90 minutes most likely for Spurs at home to Aston Villa anyway, so he's going to be a good option if you want to go for him. Up front as well, I think Isak as an alternative over Salah is also something you can go for. It's a bit cheaper and allows you to have Arsenal defenders, for example, if you want to do that for your free hit, and that might end up being what I do on the eventual free hit draft as well. But this is just to show you potential drafts if you're looking to potentially free hit or not in Game 8. Personally, I don't think this looks like the ideal squad to have for a free hit, so I'm not sure if I would use the chip myself. But if you're currently activating it, or if you have activated it already, this would probably be my ideal suggestion for now at least. But we'll see if anything changes before we get to the Game 8 deadline in about a week's time, basically. So yeah. But then we go on to the wildcard potential good fixtures and bad fixtures. This is how I want to look at it more in terms of wildcard. You have to look at it more long term than short term. And I want to look at teams that you want to target for good fixtures and teams to avoid for bad fixtures. So starting with the bad fixtures, actually, there are some teams that you might be loaded up on. For example, Aston Villa, Man United, and Man City. I think Haaland is still like absolutely essential. You need to have him. But apart from him, I don't think there's any Man City asset that you really need to have for the next like 5 game weeks. From game week 13 onwards, they are getting a lot of good matches, so that might be the time to bring them back again. But for now, I think you can go with just Haaland and have those spots open for other players from better teams, basically, or teams with, not better teams, but teams with better fixtures as it stands right now. Man United is also a team that a lot of people have players from, especially Fernandes. I don't think Fernandes is the worst hold either for the next few game weeks. As you can see, Liverpool is not the best fixture in Game Week 8, but then Brighton at home and Nottingham Forest away in Game Week 9 and 10 aren't that bad for offensive return. So I don't really mind keeping my United assets. I have Mbuemo myself, and I might just keep him for the next 3 game weeks as well, because they aren't the worst. But after that, they have 3 like pretty bad game weeks after that as well. So like from Game Week 8 to 13, the fixtures aren't the best for Man United. So on a wildcard, I would definitely not have any Man United players currently as it stands right now. Aston Villa, also a team that a lot of people have players from, especially Rodgers and Watkins. So if you kept those guys all this time, alongside Konsa as well, if you have Konsa, Rodgers, and Watkins currently in your team, that would probably be a good indication to potentially use your wildcard in Game Week 8 and get rid of them permanently, because they have really bad fixtures. Spurs away, City at home, Liverpool away, Bournemouth at home, really bad fixtures. Game Week 12 and Game Week 13 are obviously better, but that's in the future. And then Brighton away and Arsenal at home as well in Game Week 14 and 15 are not ideal either. So yeah, the long-term outlook for Aston Villa assets are not that good. So who should you replace them with? I think Liverpool players, Chelsea players, and Crystal Palace players are some of the standout teams to target at least. But like I mentioned previously, the free hit draft, Liverpool and Chelsea, they do have good fixtures. They are good teams, but I'm not sure if they have that many good assets currently. Starting with Liverpool, they obviously have 2 really solid assets usually in FPL, or really good assets in FPL usually, in Salah and Isak. But currently, I'm not sure about them, because Salah is, or both of them are basically out of form, because Isak is still working his way back into fitness. He should be ready to start games from now on. I think Slot said previously that Game Week 8 onwards, after this international break, is going to be when Isak's going to be more a regular starter in the team. So he could be a really good option. I think he's a nice player to potentially go for. But at the same time, not sure if I can trust him or Liverpool at this point. They've been pretty bad the last few game weeks. I'm not sure if they're going to be that good going forward. So they do have good fixtures, but I'm not quite sure about their assets. Salah is someone that I would definitely like to have in my squad, but he's so expensive. So I'm not sure if he's the one to target either. You could go with Van Dijk, but I've seen a lot of people potentially look to sell Van Dijk for an Arsenal defender as well, because Liverpool have been pretty bad defensively so far this season. So even him isn't the best option. So apart from that as well, they don't really have that many like standout picks that are playing every single game week. Szoboszlai, I think, could potentially be the best pick actually, because he's going to play every game at least, whether that's at right back or in midfield. At right back, he'll get the positive influence of getting DEFCON points and still being on set pieces at least. So he's still a good asset, even if he's been played out of position in that case. And if he's playing attacking midfielder, he could get some potential goals and assists for you. And I think the minutes are going to be good for Szoboszlai, because he's been just fitting into the team, whether that's in midfield or right back, pretty much all season. So I think he's a decent option. But apart from that, I don't think there's that many players that are completely nailed or are going to be people you can rely on for playing time. Egetik is going to see his playing time being less and less now with Isak permanently in the squad. Wirtz has been benched for 2 games, I think, already. He's not a reliable option. Gakpo has been a bit in and out of the team as well lately. He's not really a reliable option. McAllister and Gravenberch aren't attacking enough for me. Gravenberch has scored a couple goals so far, but I don't think that's going to continue. So, yeah, I don't think there's that many good attacking assets from Liverpool apart from that. And defensively, they just haven't shown enough. So, they do have good fixtures. I would potentially have Liverpool players, but I wouldn't be too mad about going without Liverpool players either, even though they do have some pretty good fixtures coming up in the next few game weeks. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see with Liverpool. Their prime fixtures come from game week 12 onwards, and that's when we might have a better and clearer picture of who's going to be someone to go for. I think Isak at that point will be fully ready to be in your squad, so I think he's going to be more of a template pick from game week 12 onwards. But if you want to punt on him for game week 8 onwards, I think that's a good idea as well. You could go for him potentially. Chelsea also have really good fixtures. They do have Palmer now still out with injuries. Like I said, could be game week 11, game week 12. Could be the jumping on point for him because he's probably going to be out for at least the next 3 games, potentially even the Wolves game as well, which would make him less of an enticing option for the long term from game week 11 or game week 12 onwards, because they don't really get as many good fixtures from that point onwards. So I think in his absence, I think Enzo Fernandez is a really good player to target. I think he's one of the best players to have currently in Game Week 8's wildcard, so he's definitely going to be in the wildcard team, as I'll show you pretty soon. Especially with the absence of Palmer, like I just mentioned. Joao Pedro, I think, is still a good asset to have. Also still potentially good asset to have on a wildcard, but he hasn't been in the best form. He's been a bit like up and down as an FPL asset in general, or as someone to rely on for goals and assists in the past. He was so good in the Club World Cup. That's why a lot of people have him in their squads currently. And he started the season on fire as well with a lot of goals from set pieces, which I said previously. That was the reason why I didn't sell Bowen to Joao Pedro in a couple game weeks back, because I said that those corner goals are going to dry up probably because defensive teams or teams playing against Chelsea will be more aware of that happening, and they will try to rectify it. And it's easier to defend or change your tactics in terms of defending set pieces against specific teams rather than changing your whole outlook on from open play goals. So if Joao Pedro was banging in open play goals from the start of the season more so, I probably would be higher on him as an asset, but he's shown in the last few game weeks that he's struggled a bit more from open play, so that's why I'm a bit hesitant with him, but he is still a really good asset with all the good fixtures that they do have. He could still be on penalties, potentially. He won the penalty, I think, that Enzo Fernandez took, so maybe that was the reason he didn't take it himself, because a lot of people expected him to be on penalties rather than Enzo Fernandez if Chelsea were to be given a penalty with Palmer not on the pitch. So yeah, I think those two assets are pretty good. I think Chalobah is also another player that I do quite like. He was the highest scoring defender before Game Week 6 when he got a red card and got suspended, but he's shown some promise both as a goal scorer from those set pieces like I mentioned, and also as a bonus point player. I think he's pretty much nailed whenever he's fit to play for Chelsea. With Leo Colwell out, he's going to be the main guy in their defense, so I think he's also a pretty good asset to go from Chelsea. So they have some better assets. They have also really good fixtures, so I think that's more of a team to target than Liverpool currently, but Liverpool have those high-end potential point getters in Isak and Salah, who could be really good as well. Crystal Palace don't have the best immediate fixtures in Game Week 8 and 9, but I think on a wildcard, especially with more of a long-term outlook, I would definitely like to go for some Palace players because they have really good fixtures in Game Week 10 onwards, which is when most people should be looking to bring in Palace players in general. I think Bournemouth at home is still a decent team to target for like offensive players. I think it's likely that they do concede in that game, but offensively, the likes of Sarr, Mateta, who have been looking pretty good so far this season, especially Sarr, I think those guys are pretty good, especially from Game Week 8 onwards as well. So yeah, I think Palace players are good to go for. You could also wait until Game Week 10 for like permanent transfers if you're not on wildcard with Palace players, but I do think it's safe to go for someone like Sarr now because he's just looking amazing and someone that I would like to have pretty soon in my FPL team myself. But from Game Week 10 onwards especially, they're going to have really good fixtures. Tripling up potentially could be a good idea because Palace have been really good this season and they have some really outstanding assets for like not that big of a price. So yeah, quite like Palace as well. So yeah, let's go into how that all looks on paper. Let's go to my team currently in FPL. This is what my team is looking like before a potential wildcard as it stands right now. But there are a lot of players that I would definitely like to remove if I was on a wildcard myself, like players that I ideally want to remove myself. Sels is a pretty clear option in midfield as well. I think King is the one that I like. He's a cheap price, so he's not like the worst option, but like he's not someone that is rely on either. And Buemo has those tough fixtures, like I mentioned, Man United. I would sell him. Rogers, bad fixture for him. I would sell him. Gyökeres, I think as well, he's a bit too expensive on a wildcard for me. I probably wouldn't go for him now that he blanked against West Ham, which was his better fixture in the last few game weeks. I also think like there are some other options there that I might also go away from. I think like Richards is really nice. I think, like I mentioned, Palace have good fixtures. He's really cheap price. He's just going to be a good player to have on your bench. I think he's probably going to be someone that I keep in my team, but I wouldn't be too opposed to removing him. Juve, I think, is also like a really good asset to have. I have no wishes to sell him currently with my current team, as I'm not using my wildcard myself. But I think on a wildcard I would probably remove him. We'll see what happens with his spot. I might add him back, but I think I'll remove him for now. Reinders as well. I think with the fixtures that Man City have, like I just mentioned, probably go against having him as well. He hasn't really been that good in FPL, and I think with Marmoush and Turkey coming back now for Man City, he's going to be less available to go forward in those spots where he's really good at scoring goals and getting assists in currently. So yeah, I would drop him as well. Bowen is also like a maybe. I'm going to keep him in the squad for now. Actually, I'll remove him and see what I can do with the squad. But yeah, so this is the current squad with 7 players added. I think like I would probably remove Richards as well if I was to select like the ideal players or like the sort of essential players to have. You could argue that you might not want to go with 2 Arsenal defenders, but I think they've just been so good this season, and Timber has been so offensively minded. A lot of people are looking to bring him in now currently, so I'm happy that I have him currently. I brought him in for last game week, got 11 points from him, and I think he's going to be a good asset going forward. So I do like him. Gabriel, easy player to just have for the whole season for me. Senesi as well, just super good value, even at 5.0, which is his price now. He's gone up in price. For me, he's also just like a given player to have. Dubravka is the best backup goalkeeper to have because he's going to play. He's only 4.0, the goalkeeper does play. And Haaland and Semenyo are just like amazing. 2 of the best players in the Premier League currently, so they are also staying in the team for sure. Then what about players to go for? Like I mentioned, I think Sarr from Palace is like one of my ideal options to have. I think he's also like one of the sort of nail picks I would have on a wildcard. So he would definitely be in the squad. I also think, for that matter, Enzo Fernandez is another player that I would have on a wildcard for sure, because Palmer is now out for a couple game weeks. We know that, and Enzo Fernandez is going to be really good value at 6.7 with that in mind as well. So yeah, I think these players are like the main guys, like the essential wildcard guys. This should probably make up most wildcard teams in general, because these players are all super solid. I think I'm actually just going to add Richards as well. I think he's also super solid for 4.5. That's a really good price. You could go for Guehi or Munoz instead if you have the extra money in the bank. Potentially, they are better, like high-end assets, but Richards is more reliable for DEFCON points. He's a cheaper price. And I do quite like that, especially with those 2 fixtures being pretty bad for the next 2 game weeks, where you ideally bench Richards. You want to have as much money as possible for the rest of your team. So I think Richards is potentially the best defensive asset from Palace, but I wouldn't be too opposed to going here Guehi, Lacroix, or Munoz for that matter. I think that they're all pretty good options to go for, basically. Then we go for the rest of the team. I think Saka is also someone that I would go for. Like tripling up on Arsenal seems like a good idea now, and Saka just seems like better value for Gyökeres for 0.9 more. He's going to be on penalties most likely. He is still he's the one that took the penalty when both were on the pitch last time. He's still a really good asset, really good for bonus points, really good for assists and goals. He's just been a really good player overall. Scored for England now in the international break as well. So Saka seems like a pretty good option to have. Up front, I think I'm also actually going to go with Bowen. He's just been so good for me this season in general, just because I kept him and he's rewarded me again. And the fixtures for West Ham are just really, really good, like I mentioned. I didn't have them in the wildcard like good fixtures because like long term they aren't like ideal, but looking at this, like with Brentford at home now, which I think is much easier than the 3 that the fixture difficulty rating has them in FPL in the actual site. I think that's a really good fixture. Leeds away is a good fixture. Newcastle at home is not ideal, but it's at home at least. And Newcastle were a team that were in really good form last season when West Ham faced them, and West Ham beat them. So that could happen again potentially. And then Burnley at home is also really nice. Then it's Bournemouth away, Liverpool, Man United away, Brighton away. Like it's not like the worst. Like Man United and Brighton are conceding a lot of goals. Aston Villa at home in game 16. They aren't the best team, so they're not the worst fixtures, but they're not good fixtures either. So West Ham are ideally like a team you want for the next 4 game weeks, and after that you could potentially sell them. But Bowen is someone that I would have. Maybe as the only West Ham option. Juve is still a decent option as well to go for. Somerville in midfield is also someone that is good, that is cheaper than Bowen if you want to go for a midfielder from West Ham instead. If you want to go for someone like Isak, who I don't have the money enough for to get in this team. If you want to go for someone like Isak instead of Bowen, and then have Somerville in midfield instead. I think that's also a decent way to go for a West Ham asset if you want to go that way. But for me, I think still my favorite 5.0 midfielder is still going to be Dewsbury Hall from Everton. I want to have some cheap players here to have some other good players offensively. I think I still would also go for Joao Pedro up front from Chelsea just because of the easy fixtures. He's also someone that is a bit streaky. If he gets a goal, all of a sudden he might get more goals. But as you can see, there's not that much left in the budget, 9.2 here, to bring in a goalkeeper and a defender. And goalkeeper actually should have filled in earlier. I think Nick Pope is a really good option. It seems like it's just going to be the goalkeeper for Newcastle now going forward. I've been a bit apprehensive about going for Pope because they bought Ramsdale in the summer, but it seems like they're just going to keep Pope in goal now, and he's been so good for them. Really no reason to drop him at this moment in time. And you also have Dubravka just in case if he loses his place for some reason. You have Dubravka to play for at least a couple game weeks before you bring in a new goalkeeper. It makes it a little bit less like something you have to deal with straight away. Like if you didn't have a backup goalkeeper that started for that price, it would be a bit more risky to go with a goalkeeper that could potentially be dropped. But with this situation where Pope pretty secure as the starting goalkeeper for Newcastle, and if he doesn't play, you'll still have 11 players to play with Dubravka on the bench, ready to step in. I don't think it's the worst idea to have Pope and Dubravka as your goalkeepers currently. That leaves 4.1 in the bank for the final defender. You could go with Alderete, but I think still my favorite defender is Goodmanson from Leeds. I do prefer him just slightly above Rodon because I think he's better for bonus points. He's shown that earlier in the season. He scored an own goal and had some issues. Rodon has scored the correct way, like an actual goal, and Goodmanson has scored an own goal, but I think Goodmanson could be the better option out of the two, so I would probably go with him as a cheap asset. So yeah, 0.1 in the bank for me with this squad currently. Goodmanson, Dewsbury Hall, they're going to be benched most game weeks, but they are decent options, especially Dewsbury Hall is playing super attackingly for Everton. I'm waiting for him to still get some more points. He's only gotten returns in 1 game week so far this season, and that was in game week 3, so I think he has better game weeks to come for Everton, but he's also just like mainly a backup because the rest of the attack is really good. Joao Pedro, Bowen, Haaland. Bowen and Pedro have really good fixtures for the short term. Haaland is just in fantastic form, can score against anyone. Midfield, Sarr and Semenyo are amazing players for a really cheap price still, I think. They have just been undervalued this season. Enzo with Palmer out is going to be a fantastic option in midfield. Saka is also a great option now with Arsenal's fixtures being really, really good as well. That is also a team that I could have highlighted with the teams to target currently. So yeah, in defense as well, Gabriel and Timber. Safe options. I think Timber is going to play every single game. We've seen in the Champions League, it's actually when they've rotated and used Ben White. So sometimes like having a lot of good options is actually a good thing for FPL, or like being in the Champions League and stuff. You get to use those players and still give them playing time and get to play Timber in the more important league games for Arsenal, because they are going to go through in the Champions League league phase most likely. So it's not as important to have their best squad out for the Champions League games. So I think for now, the first half of the season, I think Timber's going to be pretty safe to play every single league game pretty much for Arsenal. So I think it's going to be a good option. Senesi is great for DEFCON and everything. Basically, it's still at 5.0. He's still a fantastic option. Both offensive contributions, clean sheets, DEFCON. He has it all basically for Bournemouth, which are a really good team this season. Richard's also really good. And in goal, we have Pope, who's been really strong for Newcastle. Get one of those Newcastle defenders in to get some clean sheets for that team, because they've been so good defensively this season. And then the Rock as the backup option alongside Goodmanson as well as another backup option that's going to just be on the bench most game weeks, but there are playing players that will be able to step in if you need them to, basically. So yeah, I think that's currently my wildcard draft as it stands right now. Like I mentioned previously, I'm going to have a proper weekly wildcard draft video next week as well. We're going to go through each pick individually, more in detail, why I've picked them, basically, and there might be some changes to the team now because you don't know what's going to happen in international break. Maybe all of a sudden Isak looks like an undeniable pick. He's been good for Sweden, hasn't played too many minutes. That could be the case. He's going to play tonight, actually, as I'm recording this video. So we'll see how he looks. Maybe Gyökeres looks like in better form. Maybe he's someone to target instead rather than Saka. Like, there could be some things that happen in the international break that make me change my mind. So next week, I'm going to have an updated wildcard squad for you. I'm also going to have the updated free hit squad for you, or free hit team for you in the team section video next Friday. So you can look forward to that. And with all that in mind, I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you like the sound of that type of content. If you like this video, of course, you can like the video below by clicking the big thumbs up button. That would also help me out the algorithm. Comment down below if you have any questions or just like any praise or criticisms even as well. I'm open to get criticism if you don't like some parts of my videos. I would like to know that as well, because I always want to improve. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm about to say in this video. So yeah, thank you for watching. As always, see you next time. Bye-bye.